The Korean War of 1950 to 1953 was a defining moment. This was when the American policy of containment, if you like, was put into action, and this was going to make real the conflict between communism and capitalism. This was the Cold War bursting into Asia. This was the Cold War bursting into violence. Let's get the background. Korea was left divided at the end of the Second World War by the Japanese. The Japanese had occupied Korea, and to take their surrender, the Americans were in the south of Korea. They moved into the south to take the Japanese surrender, while the Russians moved into the north. There they set up temporary administrations, governments if you like. The north under the Russian influence, south under American influence, and the country was left divided in essence between two rival warlords, one in the north, one in the south. Both of them were determined to unite Korea under their command. It could, in a way, have been left as a local civil war with very little relevance for the world. The North Koreans had been left with a lot of equipment, a lot of military equipment, while in the south, the United States had rather conveniently withdrawn its own troops and withdrawn its military material from the south, and also made an announcement that said that South Korea was not within its defensive perimeter. It was not interested in defending South Korea. The United States withdrew its troops. The North and South were already ready to go. The North was stronger, better equipped, and it wasn't pushed by Stalin and Mao, but in the end the North felt that it had the support of large communist backers, and the United States had openly said that it was not interested in defending the South, and so the war began. It's hard to say who actually began hostilities. It's argued that both sides were attacking each other in the build-up to the war. It's just North Korea launched the most effective, massive attack at the very start of the war. So, how did the war progress? Well, very simply. It started at the 38th parallel, which was the border between the north and the south. It very quickly went all the way down to the very south, where the Americans, the United Nations, were hanging on in there in an area called Pusan. They were defending the Pusan perimeter. Then, because of a surprise attack at Incheon, they took the initiative and they went all the way to the north, crossing the 38th parallel, getting up to the Yalu River. They didn't expect a reaction from the Chinese, but they got one. The Chinese then joined the war, invaded south, and the bitter fighting went all the way back to the starting point of the 38th parallel. Of course, when the North Koreans attacked, the United States was sure to use the Security Council, the United Nations, the UNO Security Council, to call the North Korean invasion illegal, and to use the fact that Russia was not there to veto, and the United States was able to come into Korea under United Nations banner, if you like, but with the United Nations, the UNO armed forces under American command. Obviously, China, Russia, North Korea felt this as American aggression under a United Nations organization cloak. And so, at the end of it all, what were the results? What came out of the Korean War? Lots of death. The UNO, the United Nations, had proved itself to be aggressors to some, absolutely subject to the Americans, working for the Americans. To some people, the United Nations was completely discredited. To others, it had got some sort of credit for standing up to aggression, something that the League of Nations never, ever did. Another result was that China proved itself in war. Communist China, Mao's China, became a nation, if you like, because it had fought and lost so many troops in the Korean War. So China became a committed communist nation. The Chinese would also say that they had prevented further American aggression. They had stopped American expansionism. To the Chinese, they were worried that they were next. Regime change, North Korea, then next China. So for the Chinese, the Korean War secured the position of China. Korea was left divided between the North and the South, with tension that was going to last for the next 50, 60, whatever years, even up to today, where there's still international tension over Korea. Militarily, the result was a draw. And for the Americans, they would say that they successfully checked communist expansionism. They would say that they showed themselves true to the promises that they made with the containment policy. Before the Korean War, the US military planners had a white paper called NSC 68. They wanted to triple or almost quadruple the defense budget, the defense spending. Congress told them, no way, you don't need this much money. Once the Korean War happened, NSC 68 was pushed through. The American military got a massive budget increase and went on to become a hugely powerful military organization whose reason for being came out of the Korean War, whether the Korean War was necessary or not.